Here we go. Here we go. That's right. Welcome in. Welcome back to a good news, bad news edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube, and I do appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content afterwards. I feel like many of you will, and many of you, some of you may not. May not. Twitter, Always Irish in the search bar, or at JKZND4. Emails, alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You could sure as hell get me. Merchandise link below in the description. So, very interesting week 2 for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. There's a lot of moving parts with this one. A lot of moving parts. And I'm going to break this down in a couple different ways that make sense to me logically. But here's how we're going to start. We have good news and we have bad news. The good news, Notre Dame is 2-0. That's as good as you could do. You can't do any better than that. 2-0, better than Ohio State, right? Better than Clemson, right? 2-0. It's as good as you could do, undefeated. That is the good news. All of the frustration, all of the years I lost off my life in these last 2 weeks following Notre Dame, playing teams they should be able to handle easily and didn't. All of that, at least, we're 2-0, and we're going to have to discuss these struggles. Okay? So that is the good news. And I do not want us to lose sight of that. That is very important. You all know what's coming in the rest of this show. You know if you're here. You know how this is going to go. So I want to start off by saying at least we're 2-0. So I'd much rather have these complaints and these issues and these philosophical questions I'm going to ask to you guys. I'd much rather have those discussions after 2-0. But we are 2 plays from 0-2 against 2 teams that we should beat easily. 2 plays from 0-2. And at a minimum, we are 1 kneel down from Toledo away from 1-1, losing that home game winning streak and losing to Toledo at home. That guy slides and takes a knee. Instead of scores a touchdown, we're losing to Toledo. We had 1 timeout left. They take a knee. We blow the timeout. They run the clock down, kick basically an extra point, win the game. Okay, so this is just, it is not a great, listen, I'll put it to you this way. This is about as bad as anybody could feel being 2-0, but at least you're 2-0. I'm going to give them credit for that. At least they're 2-0. And I'm not going to go apocalyptic until they actually lose. So I'm going to get close because it's in my nature, and you know that. I'm going to get close, but the volcano isn't fully going to erupt till that first loss comes, whenever it is, whoever it's against. Hopefully it never comes, but it's hard for me to think hell's not coming to breakfast soon. So, take the 2-0. I mean, there's not. That's the biggest deal. That it's not all that matters, but it's the biggest deal. So right now, 2-0 is better than 0-2 or 1-1 to go over the rest of what we're going to have to go over. So I want to get that out of the way now. At least they found a way to salvage these 2 games. But hell is coming to breakfast soon if you don't figure out a lot. A lot. Okay? Here's how we're going to start. Because there's so many ancillary extra things that have gone into this ball game, I'm going to break this down into 2 sections on this show. First thing is a 6-pack of points, and then we're going to get into like an offensive and defensive breakdown. But there's so many ancillary things surrounding this game and points I want to make or follow up on or respond to that have been made to me since the game on social media phone calls, emails, you name it. Angry Twitter direct messages. I got a couple dozen. You know what people's favorite move to do to me is on Twitter now? Disagree with me, go to direct messages, call me every curse word in the book, and then block me. So they get the last word, I don't get to respond at all, and then they block me, and then I can't say anything back. So I got about 2 dozen of those yesterday. And that is just, it is the most cowardly way to go out. Words can't even describe it. So that was interesting to work through, but a lot of people called me every name of the book and then blocked me. I couldn't say anything back. It's very frustrating. I'd love to go back at you. So 6-pack of notes, 6-pack of points, and then the actual game notes. Here is my disclaimer. There's a lot of new people here starting this year, a lot of new subscribers, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to just give you this disclaimer. If you've been around here for a while, you already know this about me. But if you're new, maybe you don't. So I'm going to set the expectation for you clear as day right out of the gates. I am not a Notre Dame cheerleader. That is not my purpose, not my goal, not what I want to do. That is not what this show is for. I am not here to make you feel good about the team you like no matter what. That is not my role. I am not interested in doing that for you. I'm just not. That's not what this is. That's not what I'm about. I am here to speak about evidence-based truths in an entertaining way that makes you laugh and enjoy it, even if I'm yelling about something that's bad for us. At least if you could laugh at my reaction, it makes you feel a little better. But I am not a cheerleader. I am not here to spin everything Notre Dame does into a positive. That's not my niche, not my role, not what I'm known for. Never have been, never going to be. Not my deal. It's just not my deal. So let's get into the 6 points. Now that I got that out of the way, here's number 1. I tweeted late Friday night, very late Friday night. I just had this anxious feeling. Just something didn't feel right. I texted a few people, Mason Plummer, he's been on my show. I've done work with him. And I was texting him about it, and then I tweeted it. And I just said, I feel really uncomfortable and on edge about this ball game. So this was Friday night going into Saturday, and I just felt awkward about a lot of things. I felt like the vibe leading into this game was bad, okay? You had a bunch of negative things all in the atmosphere at the same time that I didn't like the feel of. You had all the injury news, which is terrible. The Lawrence Keys news, which was bad. You had the fan base who all hated the Peacock thing and making their preparations for that. Okay, you just had all these things going on, and none of them were positive. The vibe for the first Notre Dame home game should not have felt the way it did Friday night into Saturday, and I tweeted about it, and I finished the tweet by saying, I hope this is just unnecessary worrying by me, because it's in my nature to worry and look at the worst case scenarios. And I said, I really hope I'm just over worrying and that this isn't a thing. It was a thing. Every single thing I was worried about came to fruition. Every single part of that I felt bad about came true. Number 1, take your Peacock and shove it. Take your Peacock and shove it. It caused nothing but problems for everybody. On Twitter, people were getting logged out for no reason, having to log back in. They couldn't pause it. They couldn't move it. It would load on my brother's phone, but not on his TV. It just kept booting people out. The stream would freeze for people, and then the circle would move. Oh, the game will come back soon. Don't worry about it. Hate it. Hate it. Then this trickled down to cause problems on social media all day. These beat reporters in the press box whose job description it is to live tweet. Nobody, and everybody was mad at them because there's such a lag between Peacock and the actual game that we were seeing what happened minutes before it actually happened on TV through Twitter. When we threw the pick six, I found out on Twitter before it happened at my house on TV, and I sat in the corner quiet because I didn't want to tell my family what nightmare was coming. So trash this garbage. Love it as an option. Hate it as a requirement. Nothing but extra stress for everybody. Hate it. It needs to work perfect for everybody with no lag. Then I'll be interested. Life's already hard enough following this team. I don't need to worry about all that extra crap. Channel 5 and let me yell for 4 hours. The way nature intended it. Now, that covers Peacock. This whole vibe this weekend was negative. The entire vibe was negative so much I got water in the wrong pipe. I'm choking myself up. I hated the vibe. The vibe was bad. Before any of this started, the vibe was off. I hated it. I felt it and I hated it. And it transitioned into Saturday, and that happened too. So, Peacock, here's the next thing. In that Peacock, you can't switch games and go back to Ohio State or Oregon because you got to exit the app. Everything about it was inconvenient, but Notre Dame doesn't care. Notre Dame doesn't care. They're going to do what they're going to do. Your convenience doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want to do, push what they want to push, and we're just all sheep with this Notre Dame addiction that we're all going to do what we have to do for a Peacock. Now let's get to the actual stadium. Here's what I don't understand. A couple things I need to go over here. Number one is, I was surprised how many open seats there were at this game. Lots of open seats. And here's the part that gets me. I have to be... I'm telling you the truth, and I'm not exaggerating. One of the beat writers at one point in the middle of this game tweeted that the wave was going on in Notre Dame Stadium. If I was there for that, seeing the wave in the middle of this frustrating, horrific, stressful, but unneeded stressful game, where we're struggling to beat a MAC team at home, I would have left. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. I don't understand the wave. When you're doing the wave in the middle of that game we have going on, you know what that tells me? It screams to me, we're not here for football. The result of this game does not matter. We are just here to have fun in a park on a sunny day. That sickens me. It absolutely makes me sick to think we're in the middle of this game we shouldn't even be in this mess. And I got people doing the wave. I would have left. There is no way I could handle that because the wave tells me you're not paying attention to the game. Nothing that happens is getting to you that much, and you're just looking to have fun. This is like the Yankees to me. They always say, Yankees fans don't come to watch the Yankees play. They come to watch the Yankees win. Same thing for me. I'm not going to that stadium for yaha time. Doing the wave in the middle of all that screams, we don't care what happens. We're just here for fun. I don't live that way. It disgusts me. And if that ever happens when I'm there, I'm walking out. And I'm getting on the toll road. I'll listen to the rest of the game on the way back to Chicago. I can't handle it. It offends me to my core. It screams, we don't care about the game. It just does. It screams, I don't care about the game. If you're doing the wave in the middle of this nightmare, you just don't care, and that offends me. Too many wine and cheese crowd people. Too many, okay? So that's number one with the Peacock and the fans. Bad vibe to begin with. Hated it. Felt it Friday. It carried into the game. Hate it 100%. Peacock, love it as an option. Hate as a requirement. It has to work perfect for everybody to make this move. Notre Dame doesn't care. That offends me too, but I don't matter. Okay? I don't matter. Number 2 is, we got to start with this again. I got to hit it. I put out my tweets all frustrated during the game, and a bunch of people said in response to me, John, if this isn't good enough, you don't like this, go pick another team to like. If anybody says that to you, they instantly have no Notre Dame fanhood credibility at all. If anybody ever says that to you on social media or in real life, they have no Notre Dame credibility. Zero. You know why? It proves they don't understand what this is and what this means. There is not one person I know in my life, my family, friends, or anybody that loves Notre Dame that picked Notre Dame. Nobody I know has got their catalog and flipped through it and decided, you know what? All these teams, I think I'm going to pick Notre Dame to like my whole life, even though they haven't won in 30 years. Nobody. I did not pick loving Notre Dame. It's who I am. It's who our family is. There is no picking. Nobody picked. We're Irish Catholics. I didn't pick anything. Okay? So anybody who says that, go find another team, pick another team. I didn't pick this team. It chose us. It's in us. It's who we are. For better or worse, it is what it is. But for anybody to suggest that finding a college football team to love with all of your being is as casual as what shirt am I going to put on for this podcast shows me you have no idea what this is about. This is about a way of life. This is not about football and picking a team. There's not one person I know who picked Notre Dame. It makes no sense. And it suggests to me that if you're saying that to me, maybe you did pick them, and then I don't think your fanhood runs that deep if you casually just pick Notre Dame. It makes no sense. Also, who in the last 30 years, if you are picking, is going to pick a team that hasn't won anything, hasn't won a major bowl? None of that makes sense. So if you don't like it, it's not good enough, pick another team. I didn't pick this team. It's not possible. It's who I am. It's built in. It's pre-programmed. There's no picking. Here's number 3. I didn't think this was this hard of a concept philosophically for people to wrap their brains around, but apparently it is. I keep bringing up this year 12 of Brian Kelly. And a lot of my tweets and the stuff I put out said it's year 12 and this is what we got. In response to that, I have a lot of people saying, I don't understand what year 12 has to do with it. These players haven't been here 12 years. So what are you saying this is year 12? How does that connect to what's going on this year? People really don't understand that, what I'm getting at by that. What I'm getting at by saying it's year 12 is, by year 12, how are you not recruiting and developing enough that when you lose a bunch of guys to the NFL and graduation, other guys can backfill those roles and be okay, be decent? Maybe not great right away, but just even decent. That's what I mean by year 12. I'm incredibly disappointed. It's year 12. If you are not recruiting and developing enough to backfill when you lose guys to the NFL after a dozen years, I have to question if you're ever going to do it. I have to question if you're ever going to do it. So that's my point with 12 years. After this long, you fall apart just because a bunch of guys went to the NFL. You don't have other guys behind them that are good enough to step in and be competent early the next year. I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think it's too much to ask. Any of the top teams we're trying to be and beat are pretty good at doing that. Okay? They lose a bunch of guys. There's another bunch of guys that are good that step in. You don't have these big ups and downs. And if you're going to have these big ups and downs, the ups need to be the LSU up of a championship. I'm a lot more tolerant of the downward swings when there's a title on the high end. Our high end is getting killed in the playoff, then it goes down. That's not that fulfilling. Sorry. Also, a lot of how you're processing this or looking at analyzing this season, this ball game, has to do with expectations. That's a big part of this entire discussion, is the expectations. Let me ask you this. After 4 10-plus win seasons, a couple of playoff appearances, solid undefeated regular seasons, I think making the playoff and winning a playoff game has to be the expectation now. How can anybody that follows Notre Dame tell me that's not fair? Setting the bar lower than that would be an insult to what the program's accomplished the last 4 years. So I just don't get it. Like, what do you want the expectations to be? We've done everything except get to the playoff and win a game. 10-plus wins 4 years in a row. Now all of a sudden you're magically okay with barely beating Toledo? How is that okay? The expectations here are a compliment to what the program's accomplished. To hold them lower than that is insulting. There's only one more thing to do, and it's win playoff games. That's the bar now. Year 12, you don't get to just drop back. That's not how this works. Not how this works. So making the playoffs and winning a game there has to be the bar. And that's why when you're looking at a ball game like Notre Dame Toledo, you're always looking at it in two lenses at the exact same time. Lens 1, how are we doing in this game? Lens 2, how we're doing in our game or games over 2 weeks? How does that compare to the big picture in college football? And how do we stack up against the good teams we want to be and we want to beat? Those are always the two lenses I'm looking at a ball game at the exact same time. How are we doing today? And how do we look versus the best teams? Yes, we've won our 2 games, but we look nowhere close to competitive to any legitimate title contender playoff team. That's just a neutral, not even neutral, but an objective opinion looking at our first 2 ball games. We look nothing like a competitive playoff team, and a dozen years in, I do not have the patience for that. I just don't. If you're not reloading after 12 years, I have doubts you ever will. And again, with the peaks, if you're going to have highs and lows, the highs have to win you something, or what are you doing? So that's where I'm stuck. LSU's a great example of like really high, really low extremes, but at least their high was a title. I could live with that. I could live with a couple bad seasons if I have a ring at least. So it's tough, okay? Here's number 4. The win is all that matters, people. There's still people, the win, that's all that matters. And I'm saying, not really. How you look also matters. Giving us confidence you're getting better and can compete when we get into the meat of our schedule that's coming. That also matters. I don't think there should be a ranking poll until about 5 or 6 weeks in the season, but They still do one. Guess what? All your win is all that matters, people. We won and we dropped 4 spots in the AP poll. So apparently winning's not all that matters, because the people that rank you based on how you did, even in a win, they dropped you 4 spots. Dropped you 4 spots. So anybody in the win is all that matters crowd, I don't know why you live that way. I admire it in a way because you're going to outlive me and have way more hair and all that stuff. But I don't understand. I just can't live that way. If you were somebody who literally were 2-0, I don't care what it looks like, who it was against, none of that. I feel good we're 2-0. God bless you. You're going to outlive me by a lot. You're going to outlive me by a lot. So I'm happy for you. But that's just not how I live. I can't do it. So it's not all that matters. And if it was, you wouldn't have dropped 4 spots even in a win. Maybe that's the best thing about Peacock, is that it kept all of the Notre Dame haters who aren't willing to pay money to hate us from seeing our game. So maybe Peacock is good for one thing. Kept a bunch of casual haters away from Notre Dame for a day. So maybe that's good, right? So in the win is all that matters thing, I also had people bringing up to me Ohio State and Clemson, how they both have losses, and how, would I rather be 2-0 or be those guys with 1 losses overall as a program? Overall as a program, I'd rather be both Ohio State and Clemson. What do you mean? They're some of the best recruiting teams out there the last few years. They both won, if not won, multiple titles in the last handful of years. Have good recruiting going on now and for the next couple years. So, yeah, I'd still rather be them. They both lost games so far this year, but at least they have titles in their back pocket recently. That all matters. That all matters, okay? So yeah, I'd rather be 2-0 than 1-1, but it's not an apples to apples comparison of fanhood and how you feel. I'm looking at the big picture, not just 2 weeks. I'm looking at the big picture of the joy Ohio State and Clemson's had in recent history that I've never had in my life. So it's all different. That's not apples to apples, okay? If I had to bet money on it, as we sit now looking at Ohio State, Clemson, and Notre Dame this year, I would bet both of those teams end up with better records than Notre Dame, even with their losses now, with Notre Dame 1 game in pocket. I would say that overall. So I struggle with that. The other thing is, too, oh, John, last week when I was freaking out after Florida State, a bunch of people told me, you need to relax. Florida State's good. They played good. They're going to be better this year and all that. I did my post-game show, and I credited Florida State for their energy, enthusiasm, and effort against Notre Dame. I praised them for that. But I have real doubts of whether Florida State is going to be able to maintain this energy level, focus, and enthusiasm they had for Notre Dame moving forward. Fast forward 1 week, Jacksonville State beat Florida State by the same amount we did, 3 points. Jacksonville State. So all you people who told me I was overreacting and maybe Florida State was way better, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, and it lasted 6 days. Jacksonville State beat Florida State by the same amount Notre Dame did. If that doesn't make the red trouble light go off in your brain, nothing will. Your house could be on fire and you wouldn't even know to get up and leave. Okay? If that doesn't register as a red flag to you. Jacksonville State beat Florida State by the same amount you did. If you think things are going fine, you are not paying attention, or you're delusional, or something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Okay? So here's the final thing on the win is all that matters part of this. I've seen some people tweet the win is all that matters. and then later go write an article about the game. Well, wait a second now. Philosophically, this doesn't make sense. If you're tweeting the win is all that matters, then there is nothing to write about. You got the win, and then you just watch the next week. There's no tape to break down. There's no article to write. There's no podcast to make. There's no YouTube video. If the win is all that matters, there's nothing to talk about. So for you to tweet the win's all that matters and then go write a blog article, it makes no sense. If the win is all that matters, there's nothing to say, nothing to analyze, nothing to talk about, nothing to be proud of, nothing to be mad at, nothing to clean up, no player of the game, no nothing. If the win's all that matters, then you're done. There's no social media, there's no tweets, no Facebooking. Stay philosophically consistent. Okay? Stay philosophically consistent. That is my point. Stay consistent. I can't let you philosophically box yourself in and think you're going to get out of it that way. Okay? No. Final thing is reload versus rebuild. That ties right into my year 12 frustration. It is the biggest thing I've been pushing all off season. Are we reloading or rebuilding? Well, the fact is, 2 weeks in, I already know what it is. It's a little bit of both. A little bit of both. But the areas where we're rebuilding are so bad, it's dragging down the reloading part, and that's going to create a cap on what this team could be. 2 weeks in, and that's my conclusion based off what I've seen. There are lots of little individual sparks and things to be happy about and proud of, and that give you hope and all these little flashes and in these time periods. But the parts that are bad aren't just like mediocre or average. They're really, really bad. And I just worry that's going to cap any of the positives and put a ceiling on what could be accomplished. I'm sorry. I don't see it any other way. I don't see it any other way. To struggle this way against these two teams to open the year when you've been at this a dozen years and should have things rolling, it really sits wrong with me. It just doesn't sit right. It just doesn't sit right. I just strongly feel that after a dozen years, you should have things flowing a little bit more than you do. This looks like year one of a rebuild. This looks like year one of a new coach. And it can't be that a dozen years in. You got to have things tidier. You just do or something's wrong. You do or something's wrong for it to be this disjointed and to have this much bad in certain areas is not normal for year 12. So I'm really, really, really frustrated with that. That being said, those are my bullet point notes. Now let's get into some actual game notes. So first things first here, let's just get this out of the way. I've said before a million different times, I do not watch Brian Kelly press conferences. I don't gain anything from them. It's coach speak. It frustrates me. I see the bullet points on Twitter. After the game, I saw a note that in the press conference, Kelly said Notre Dame seemed to lack intensity, and he assumed responsibility for that. Again, that cannot be an issue when it is your 12th year coaching Notre Dame. Intensity for your first home game when you're a top 10 team, no matter who it's against, cannot be in question. Why is that? Why is getting up for your first home game when you're a top 10 team, you can't get guys excited? What is wrong? I don't get that. I don't understand how that's possible. Was this another business trip even though it was at home? Everybody go, get your briefcase and your tie and your loafers. I don't get it. How is motivation a problem for this game? I'll never understand it in a million years. I don't get it. I just don't get it, and I hate it. Okay? But that's what he said. Let's talk about the offense, shall we? The offensive line is the number one issue, and there's no easy fix. Let's just get that out of the way. You allowed 6 sacks to Toledo and look horrific and horrible and awful. Okay? 6 sacks against Toledo. 132 yards rushing, 3.4 average. You got a big run out of Buckner, which was just him running away from the line to get, whatever. It is really, really bad. It is horrific. And that brings me to O-line U. Here's the thing. Stop. I'm begging you, stop. I don't want to hear it. I can't process it. We're in year 12 and we can't block anybody. I am not listening to O-line U. If you want to tell me Quentin Nelson's awesome, go for it. You want to tell me Martin's awesome, go for it. Ronnie Stanley, go for it. The Bears, who played tonight, have 2 Notre Dame guys starting on their line. You want to tell me they're good? Go for it. But offensive line U, when you're giving up 6 sacks against Toledo and ran the ball for 65 yards against a rebuilding Florida State team, no. Stop. I can't handle it. Stop. If you're claiming O-line U, it has to be all the time every year. You don't get to just pull it when things look decent and then not when it looks bad. If you're O-line U, be O-line U all the time. And if you're not, credit the individual guys that are doing good in the league from Notre Dame. But stop calling it offensive line U. They can't do the job. Stop. You don't have to be perfect. It just can't be this. I understand even without the injuries, we were in a bad spot with 4 out of 5 guys being replaced. I understand that. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't expect perfect in week 2. But it can't be this. If you're O-line U, whoever you have has to be able to do better than this. This is unacceptable play. Unacceptable play. And it's a damn shame because there's a lot to like on the rest of this offense. But it's all going to be held back by those guys up front that can't do anything, can't move anybody, can't block. I don't get it. I don't get it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I didn't expect it to be. But it can't be this after 12 years. It can't. It just can't. So stop with O-line U. It's either all the time or just call the guys in the league individual that are good. I can't handle this. O-line U, you want to claim. You're giving up 6 sacks against Toledo. Give me a break. No, I won't allow it. It's disingenuous, okay? So this is by far the number one biggest problem on the team, and it's supposed to be the thing we're noted for being the best at. You figure it out. I can't figure it out. I'm not expecting everybody to be an All-American or Quentin Nelson. I'm not. But it can't be this. This is absolutely absurd. It's amateur hour. Kane Madden, now I know why you weren't at a big program. Used and abused. You might have to move Patterson around. You got to do something. You have to do something. Give me any big body that is willing to move somebody back in front of them. I don't understand why this is so hard. You don't need to be great, but you can't be what we are. And I have no patience for it 12 years in at all. And the O-line U moniker it's like mocking me. Like, O-line U, what do you mean? We can't do anything. I can't handle it anymore. You guys got to stop. I can't listen to it. You have to stop. Please. So this is by far the biggest problem group on the whole team. And unfortunately, it is the hardest thing to get better at in season. That's the issue. Like, we'll get to defense, but I at least can see some paths on the defense of where things could get better and tighten up. I don't see an obvious path on offense because of that offensive line. That's the issue. Like, the defense has its problems too, and we're going to get to it. Some of those I could see being fixed and tidied up over the next few weeks. Offensive line, I don't see an easy solution, but you need to do something, and you need to do it fast, because this is a damn joke, what we're being sold right now. A total joke. And hell is coming to breakfast. You can't block Florida State and Toledo. What do you think Wisconsin and the other 4 teams in a row after that were all ranked going into yesterday are going to do when you gave up 6 sacks against Toledo, Ohio? Tell me how that's going to go. How do you think these shows are going to go? Tell me. So, O-line's a complete dumpster fire. Stop saying O-line U when you can't even block Toledo. It makes me sick to my stomach. Now, let's move on to the quarterbacks. And this is actually very, very, very interesting. Okay? Cone. Here's the deal with Cone. Now, dislocated finger, came back, won the game, whatever. Overall, I have no issues with Cone. Now, yesterday, there was at least 2 plays, and they happened to be big plays, a strip sack and a pick 6, where Cone had wide open guys to throw to, and he didn't see them or didn't see them in time. One was a pick 6, and one was a strip sack. Now, do I wish that a guy with Jack Cone's experience would have recognized our open guys earlier? Obviously, yes, but I don't really honestly feel like I could blame Jack Cone for all this because he's getting pressured 24/7. He was probably having nightmares last night, falling asleep of Toledo and Florida State guys attacking him from every which way. So, yeah, I wish Cone would have made better reads on those plays, but it'd help if he didn't have to worry about getting beheaded every single play by O-line U that can't protect anything. So, yeah, I'm frustrated with him that those mistakes happen. But what do you want the guy to do? He's got 1 second to throw, and then he's got to look out. So, yeah, that was frustrating, but it's hard to blame him. When you have 6 sacks and you can't block anybody, it's hard to expect a quarterback to comfortably make reads and progressions. Came back, won the game, busted finger. Listen, Cone is the perfect quarterback for Notre Dame with an offensive line the last couple years where it's like really decent but not elite, but good enough that he would be able to sit back there, make progressions, and distribute the ball. Cone would have excelled and had mega numbers in that kind of offense with decent protection. Cone is not a runner. He is not a runner. That's the other reason I don't understand when they do these kind of option zone read plays, or if you want to call it an RPO with Cone and he has the option. Here's the thing. He's not a runner, so he never keeps the ball, which means there is no option. And they keep doing it. He's never going to keep it. That's no option. That's the opposite of an option. I don't get it. So you got this all mismatched, and it's not Cone's fault. Cone is perfect when he has protection. He would be really good, and Notre Dame guys would put up a great stats. If he had a nice little pocket, make his progression, see who's open, distribute. That ain't what we're working with. So the whole Cone thing, it isn't even his fault. The struggles they're having, it's all the offensive line. And Cone is not the best quarterback to operate within an offensive line that is in shambles. Now, enter Tyler Buchner. Okay, enter Tyler Buchner. Here's the thing. They put him in when we were back on the shadow of our own goal line, and he did just fine. Okay, here's the thing. Now people are starting to say, after seeing Buchner energize the team, open up the run game because he actually has the legs, he can keep it and pull it, bounce outside or throw it, okay? So they put Buchner in to try and use his legs to generate some running yardage because nothing else they were doing was working. Here's the thing. Now people are saying, should Buchner start? Should Cone start? I don't know. But I'm telling you this. You are in a position where you may not have a choice but to play Buchner a lot or more than you want. I'm not saying start him all the time right now. If we lose a game, I may reevaluate this because then you're in a total developmental track then if this goes off the tracks with a couple losses. So I'm not going to go there yet. But this whole Cone or Buchner, you may not have the option. Like, this may not be a luxury to pick which guy you want soon. You might need Buchner just to run with his legs to give you any sort of running game and open things up at all. So that whole debate Notre Dame people are having, who should it be between these guys? I don't think you have a choice. If the offensive line is this bad, Buckner's going to have to see a lot of time from now on because he gives you the running ability. And that's the only way we're going to gain any yards, apparently, because O-line U can't push around Toledo. Give me a break. It's a total joke, an absolute joke, 12 years in, okay? So this quarterback thing may not even be an option. Buchner, 3 for 3, 78 yards passing, 68 rushing. There's no doubt he provided Notre Dame a spark they needed. Cone, 21 of 33, 239, 2 touchdowns. The pick six is brutal. But you look at Buchner, 68 yards rushing. Cone, minus 24. One of them has legs, one of them doesn't. It's just not Cone's game. Cone is not the best quarterback for no offensive line. You may need Buchner just to open up some running lanes. And as I've said before, if this turns into more of a developmental year, then it's got to be more Buchner because at least then you're prepping for the future. So until we lose, do what you need to do. But I think Buchner needs to play more to open things up. You're going to need both. And both of them did some very nice things that contributed to the win yesterday. Like I said, even with the Cone mistakes, I am not putting it all on Cone. I am not. I refuse. He's not getting any help. Not getting any help at all. So I think you're going to need both of those guys and Buchner to run. Running backs, what can you say? It's very frustrating because they're held back by the offensive line again. But they tried. Kyron at least had 78 yards and a tutty. Tyree, 7 for 12 yards. I feel bad. I want to see our running backs with an actual offensive line and see what they could do. We don't have it. We're not going to get it. We're not going to see it. Very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, okay? Wide receivers, tight ends. Michael Mayer's an absolute animal. You love to see it. Love to see him make up for the drops last week. Big plays, all that. 7 for 81, 2 touchdowns. Awesome. The guy's fantastic. I said it last week. There is no amount of balls that are thrown to him that I'm going to say it's too many. It's impossible. If you threw him 30, I'd say it's not enough. Give him the ball. Now, even with the struggles on the offensive line, here is something I did like from yesterday, and it did stick out to me. We had 9 different players catch passes. The normal suspects, Austin, Lindsey Davis, Tyree, Wilkins, Williams, Colsey, and Styles were out there, and each caught a pass. I really, really love to see that. I love seeing those guys get in the mix, get some snaps, contribute. That is a start. I really, really liked seeing that, and I want to see more of it. I was very happy for those guys. They were able to get in the game, make their first catches for Notre Dame. Love it. Love it a lot, okay? So, offensively, there is a lot of individual pieces here that are very intriguing that I like, and I'd love to see how they develop and grow. But if the offensive line can't just be even mediocre, this is all going to get weighed down, and the ceiling of what they could do is going to be capped at a very low, frustrating level. It's really, really annoying because there are so many good athletes that are ready to contribute on a big level, on a big showcase. But without the line, none of it's possible. None of it's possible. Figure it out. Figure it out. Okay? Figure it out. It's year 12. Let's go. Block somebody. This is not freshman to high school football. Block somebody. All right. Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. At least I could say this about the defense, and I'm not just saying this because of my recent marriage to Marcus Freeman, but I honestly can see light at the end of this tunnel. Even with the injuries at linebacker that are piling up, I could see light at the end of the defensive tunnel. I can't see on the offense because I don't see an answer to that offensive line problem that's gonna be able to make the offense run the way it should and to utilize and maximize the talent we have. On defense, I at least can see some light there at the end of the tunnel and some things that are strong or could be, okay? So make no doubt about it. These first 2 weeks are about the worst case outcome I can imagine for this Marcus Freeman situation. And I'm not just saying this because I love his recruiting ability and personality. I really do think over time, this will settle in and settle down and be a decent defense. The injuries don't help, but I could at least see these little light flickers of hope on the defensive side of the ball, okay? I think the defensive front, 5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss, there's some light. I like that. At least the defensive front, MTA, 2 sacks. J.D. Bertrand, 11 tackles, led the team. I want to credit J.D. Bertrand specifically as a guy who got a lot of snaps because of that rash of injuries to that linebacking core. What did he do? Went out there at home, led the team in tackles with 11. He flashed, and it was noticeable a lot. I want to credit Bertrand. Great job. But that defensive front, I think, can hang 5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. Here's the deal, though. The rest of it is not good, and it needs to get tightened up. Notre Dame is 111th out of 130 in scoring defense. Bad. 104th in stopping the rush out of 130. Bad. 90th in third down defense. Bad. Here's the worst part. Here is the worst part. Notre Dame, through 2 weeks this year, has allowed the same amount of 60-plus yard plays as we've had the last 3 years combined. Let me say that again. We have allowed the same amount of 60-plus yard plays in 2 weeks as we have the last 3 years combined. That's a problem. Figure it out. Figure something out. I do believe this defense will improve. I think there's little things you could do, like little angles and just little things you could do to stop getting shredded for 80 yards, 70 yards. This is not Notre Dame's defense. That's not what we do. Tighten that up. A little better gap integrity on the middle or back end. And yeah, those might be chunk plays for a first down, but they're not game-changing. Just 80-yard stabs in your throat. So, listen, Marcus Freeman's a great recruiter. I love his personality, all that stuff. I don't want to have to get divorced from him yet. But you have some good pieces. You better lean on those and fill in the gaps everywhere else. And by fill in the gaps, I literally mean fill in the gaps. So there isn't big wide open ones for the other team to shred us. I've about had it with teams we are way better than torching us for big runs and passes. It's just not Notre Dame football. So figure it out. But I at least think this is a little bit more doable than what I need the offense to get better at. I just think there are ways that you could tighten it up on this defensive end to eliminate some of those big plays and whatever, and use your front on the line that is pretty decent at getting pressure to help with that. But I know they got a lot of injuries at the middle part of that defense. You just need to figure it out. Have guys that are fundamentally sound, know their roles, know where they're supposed to be, so you don't have these huge mistakes that change games. It's almost cost us wins 2 weeks in a row against inferior opponents. You no longer have any margin for error. I think Purdue won 49-0 or something in their ball game. So hell could be coming to breakfast before Wisconsin if you're not paying attention. So I at least see flashes on the defense that make me a little more comfortable to think that could be tightened up as the year goes on. Offensively, I am just way freaked out and beyond frustrated. Just beyond frustrated. There's so many exciting players we have that are limited right now because the offensive line doesn't do the main thing offensive linemen are supposed to do: block people, move people. I don't understand how you have nobody that could do anything against Toledo and Florida State. I don't get it. Did you not recruit it all behind the line we had last year, or nobody developed to where they're decent? I don't understand it. I can't buy into it. I don't like it. In fact, I hate it. And it's going to ruin the season if it doesn't get figured out. Move, guys. I don't care what you have to do. Do something. You have to. You have to do something. You can't just run it back out there and hope next week it's better. So, where does this leave us overall? 2-0, undefeated, baby, and drop it in the rankings. Like, that is a very specific, unique skill. To start out 2-0 and drop in the rankings. That's impressive, okay? That's a Notre Dame thing, all right? That takes some extra skill to go 2-0 and drop 4 spots in the AP poll. That's a Notre Dame move. So, we're 2-0, and I'm not going to go full volcanic till there's a dumb loss. Maybe it will never come, but the way we're playing, we're begging for it. So, there's a lot to clean up, a lot to not like, but there are a lot of bright spots on this team too. There's a lot of individual talent on this team. They are just being dragged down and held down by the bad parts, and it's very, very painful to watch. So you better clean things up real fast. I asked the question all offseason, are you reloading or rebuilding? You're 2-0, so I'm gonna leave the door cracked open to the reload here if you could turn a corner. But hell is coming to breakfast in the meat of this schedule if you don't tighten it up. So we may do a chat stream to see what you guys think of the first 2 weeks in a couple days. Then we'll come out with the pregame show. And then we'll do it all again next week. And I'll lose my appetite, my hair, everything. My mind. I mean, seriously, you guys, can you do this for 12 weeks? I can't even handle it. 2 weeks against 2 opponents we should beat. Look at us both. Sitting there stressed to the last minute. It shouldn't be that way. It just doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. Play competent football. Take care of business. I don't understand. I don't like it. Very frustrating, but it is what it is. We're not going anywhere. We love it. I'm addicted to it. It's who I am. We're still all going to be here. So talk to you next time.